joined now by Betsy DeVos, former education secretary under Donald Trump. New Title IX rules coming out. I want to make sure that you guys all understand them well. And I figure there's nobody better to explain where we are and how things are changing than Betsy DeVos. So thank you for joining us. I know you fought battles over this a great deal in the Trump administration. But for people out there who are kind of following this, what are the changes that Biden is trying to put in place? What is he trying to undo that you fought to change? And what is the latest?
Sure, Clay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and great to be with you. So the Title IX rule, as we all know it, was passed more than 50 years ago to give women specifically equal access to education opportunities. And over the years, most women have commonly known those to be associated with sports as well. During our administration, we did a rules process and came out with a rule that has the force of law that really brought fairness and evenness and predictability and justice to what had happened during the Obama administration because of a move they made to essentially create kangaroo courts on campus. So
yes.
An individual would be charged with something, and one person would start from investigation to doing the whole process to be the detective, the prosecutor, the judge, the jury, and the executioner. This rule that the Biden administration has just come out with, again, goes back to that model. It's one of the most outrageous parts of the rule, but it also is only a part of it. They have taken dramatic steps further to the left on every part of this rule.
Okay, and for people out there who may not be familiar with this, the kangaroo courts that you're referencing, a woman could accuse a student, co-ed, a woman could accuse a male of sexual assault. Sometimes they weren't even allowed to cross-examine, and they would have these Title IX investigations, and they were kicking a lot of boys out of school, and there was no real ability to actually determine whether or not there was any improper conduct there. You guys tried to at least put procedural safeguards there that could be in place. What about the
Absolutely.
trans-related?
Well, there were literally hundreds of cases brought against schools because due process was denied individuals against whom a complaint was lodged, and sometimes it was actually even done by a third party against the wishes of the two parties that were in the whole situation. So this our rule put an end to that and gave a just and fair and balanced approach that allowed for all the things that you would normally expect in a due process consideration, to be able to understand what you're being accused of, to have evidence, to be able to question the other side, to have the regular exchange of information one would expect in a due process environment. That is being done away with, undermined completely, and above all, the rule that the Biden administration has put out is really, at its base, anti-women. It really is the first time that the Title IX law, meant to help encourage and give opportunities to women, is actually going to be used to harm, not help women. And that goes to all of the sports-related issues, and they're radically rewriting a half century of protections and opportunities for women and replacing them with radical gender theory, only to appease Biden's far-left base.
Okay, and for people out there who that sounds confusing too, let me sum it up and you explain if I'm basically getting it. Title IX was initially created to provide equal opportunity to women in sports. And so a university out there that is giving, let's say, 150 scholarships to men would also need to give 150 scholarships to women. Basically, it's pegged to the overall enrollment of the university to allow women's athletes to be able to be treated in a similar fashion from a scholarship perspective to men. My understanding is that what the Biden administration is now doing is saying Title IX also encompasses gender ideology. That is, if you are a man pretending to be a woman, you should be considered based on your gender identity to also be a woman. Is that part of what they are doing now in terms of the way that they are applying Title IX?
Yes, absolutely correct. It will require boys to be allowed in girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, and private spaces starting as early as elementary school. It will make it a violation of federal civil rights law to call someone the wrong pronoun. It puts women's safety, privacy, and competitive opportunities at total risk in sports, and we've seen it happening on team after team across the country. Now, the Biden folks will claim this isn't the case, but that is exactly what they are putting into this rule, which will become the force of law and must be stopped. But that is exactly what will happen. They're trying to be cute and call it something different, but you read the text, and that is exactly the bottom line of what will be the case.
So let me this is crazy, I think, for a lot of people out there. So this would mean that the Biden administration is trying to protect a man who identifies as a woman from being able, even if he still has full male genitalia, to go into a women's locker room because he is claiming that he is a woman.
Correct. It's exactly what it does.
I mean, this is bonkers.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is totally pandering to the far left wing of their party base, and it is an election year ploy. It's a regulation, a rule that must be stopped either by Congress or in the courts. But it is truly something that nobody really needed. Nobody needed, and very few people wanted. It's been demanded by the far left wing of the Democrat Party, and Biden made it clear from the get-go that he was going to head that direction as soon as he took office.
You may have seen the video, and we're talking to Betsy DeVos, former education secretary of Donald Trump. You may have seen the video of Dawn Staley, South Carolina women's basketball coach, saying that she believed effectively this far left-wing ideology, which is that if a man decides to identify as a woman, that she believed that man should be eligible to play women's college basketball. That clip went viral.
It is inconceivable to me that anyone involved in women's sports would hold that view. We know that the vast majority of people see it otherwise, and I think that will be soon made clear by Congress. Congress has an opportunity to use the Congressional Review Act authority to stop the rule. I hope they will do so quickly. The rule we put in place during the last administration was serving students well, and it was based on what the Title IX law actually requires. This administration has taken a law and stretched it to the uttermost ends of incredulity to make up new definitions for sex as gender identity and to inject all of this radical gender theory into a law that has, over the years, meant more opportunities for women. This, like I said, is the most shockingly anti-woman move that I think could have been made.
How many women understand this in your experience? Because I get fired up about this from just I came out of the world of sports. So the idea that a man should be able to compete against a woman in women's sports is completely crazy to me, in the same way that when I coach 12-year-old Little League, the idea that a 16-year-old should be able to play against my kids is crazy. How many women really understand this? Because I think women are being taken advantage of, and I keep waiting, Betsy, for the feminist, for the Title IX activists, for them to be willing to stand up and say the ultimate male privilege, since that's something that everybody wants to focus on, is a man saying that he's a woman and requiring that everybody treat it as the truth, even though we all know it's a falsehood. Where are all these women that claim to care so much about actual women?
Well, I think they're all out there. I think many of them are afraid to speak up. But we're hearing from more of them as they've actually experienced having to compete in different venues today. And I think, if this is not immediately turned back, I think we're going to hear from more increasing numbers because it's becoming increasingly common. And more women are going to quickly realize that even though it might sound like it's good and fair, in reality, it is not fair for a woman to have to compete against a biological male and have the same expectations from each of them.
If people are fired up about this, and I've got the sense that a lot of our listeners will be, and we're talking to Betsy DeVos, former education secretary in the Trump administration, what should they do? What should women and men out there who are hearing about this for the first time listening on the radio right now, what should they do? What would you encourage them to do to take action against this?
I encourage them to get a word into your members of Congress, your congressmen, your senators, and urge them to use their congressional authority to implement the Congressional Review Act to put a stop to this rule. This is going to be an important issue going into this fall's elections, and it's going to be a tough question for people like Senator John Tester and Bob Casey and Sherrod Brown, all in seats that are at high risk for the Democrats. I'd like to see them come out and defend this rule and the implementation of this rule and be able to justify it in a way that their voters are going to embrace. It's not going to happen. More and more people are going to become aware of what the exact implications of this are, and this is probably a 90% issue in the minds of the American people. The very few people who support this notion of biological males being able to have full access to women's sports locker rooms and other private spaces just because they've decided that they are a woman, it cannot stand. I also want to say that for those individuals for whom this is really an issue, there is a third way, and let's be talking about that, those who are trying to defend this. But do not destroy women's sports and do not, put to an end the absolute original intent of Title IX by implementing what the Biden administration is trying to do here.
And quickly, shouldn't Joe Biden himself have to explain what he believes here? I don't think he's ever been asked directly. I've never seen it. Do you think a man should be able to identify as a woman and compete in women's athletics? That's a very simple question. I've never seen anybody ask him that question. Don't you think he should have to directly answer it himself?
Absolutely, he should. Absolutely, he should. I'd like to hear his answer and I'd like to hear his justification.
Thank you so much, Betsy DeVos. You're doing great work. We appreciate you taking the time to help clear up what is a messy situation that many people out there just can't believe is real.
Well, thanks so much, Clay, and appreciate your airing the issue and having the discussion about it.
No doubt. We're going to keep at it. Thank you. It's Betsy DeVos, former education secretary in the Trump administration.